Welcome back to another episode of Import Modify, guys. This episode, we're going to get this thing finally put back together. So as you can see, I got the heads in, and I had them clean the upper and lower intake manifold nice and thoroughly on the inside and everything. So not only is the heads nice and clean, but the intake manifolds are as well. So we have nice intake track. Everything's going to be cleaned up for the nice new turbo. And I did get a couple parts in. We'll go over that here in a second, so stay tuned. So as you can see, I got me some cool parts for the fuel system, and the reason for that being is we're upgrading to a T3, T4 setup. We need to take care of the other end of it, and that's the fuel and all that. So I went ahead and got me some new injectors. Now, the Apexi FASC, no, I can't say that shit right. It's always mess it up. The Apexi SAFC2 unit that I'm using can only go up to 50% greater than the stock fuel injector size. So if you do the math from 260cc, that puts you about 380. And the problem when going to the 380 size on an Apexi unit, from what I read, I don't have any experience in any of this, is you end up having problems with idling and all that. So I decided to go with a set of 309cc injectors. But the cool thing about that is I went and got an adjustable fuel pressure regulator, because if you look at the chart here, 309 cc's at 43.5 psi. I can up it to 55 and get 348, or I can up it to 58 psi and get 357 cc flow out of it. So with that being said, I have a good amount of adjustability to play with the fuel trim, to get as much horsepower as I can out of what I have for a setup, and also play with it, the fuel pressure regulator, in order to obtain a nice idle. So I'm hoping to get the best out of both worlds, and I'm not trying to build a super high horsepower engine. I just want something a lot quicker than what it was. So we'll be able to take care of that with these components, I believe. And also, one of the other things I read is a weak point in the car is the stock fuel pump. So I decided to go ahead and get a Walbro 255 in-tank fuel pump to replace the stock unit. So we'll be replacing that. And also I got the AEM wideband in. Whenever we make the custom exhaust, I'll be able to not only control everything with the Apexi unit, but make sure that I'm getting the right burn and the right air-fuel ratios with this unit here. So there'll be, without a doubt, no question that the engine is running at the proper AFRs. So we got the fuel system covered on this, but that's not going to be mainly in this episode. This episode, we're just going to see how far we can go on getting this car put back together. So I have everything apart right now. I got everything laid out that I need, and I got me some sandpaper and whatnot. So I'm gonna have to take my time and clean the surfaces of the block so that I can install those heads. And after I get those heads on, we'll start rocking and rolling and getting the other components on as well. Now, if you watched my last episode, you saw that I had cracks on the manifold, and we went ahead and I got Eric to go ahead and weld those cracks up for me. So I still have to grind these down and paint this up. So I have a lot of prep work ahead of me and everything to get this thing going. So I'm going to get busy and try to knock out as much as I can. And then we'll see where this episode ends up at the end. I don't know yet, but just stay tuned and enjoy the content. I got everything cleaned up as far as the surface of the block, and what I like to do is use a sanding block with some sandpaper. Now this is 180 grit, and you can get away with this on an iron block. Do not do this on an aluminum block, but I just took the sandpaper and sanded it down, and then took my compressed air, blew everything out, and then once I got the surface to where it was nice and smooth and to my liking, I went ahead and rotated the cylinders so that I can clean the cylinders up as well to get any debris out. And then I took a little bit of oil on my finger and lubricated the cylinder walls again so that I know that the cylinder walls are lubricated for whenever we put the heads on. And I'll put everything back to top dead center on cylinder 1. So we're good on this. That's what I do with all the iron blocks basically for the head gasket surfaces. Good success doing that in the past, so highly recommend doing that with a sanding block. And looking at the heads here, look how pretty they are. They look brand new, but I went ahead and I took the assembly off on the driver's side. But just to give you an idea of how good of a job they did, everything is nice and pretty and new looking. So these cylinder heads are without a doubt good to go. So I took the head bolts, researching head bolts. Head bolts, they say that you can reuse them. I took the best ones out of all that I had, and I cleaned them up, made sure that the threads are nice and good and everything's clean on that. So we're good to go as far as the head bolts now. And just to point out, on these heads, you do have some that are taller than others, and counting them off, here's the tall ones. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. And as far as the short ones, you should have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 short ones and 4 tall ones is a complete set for a head. So just to give you guys an idea, when I was taking the heads off, one of the short bolts was actually in the long bolt area, but it didn't have a head gasket leak. But keep your eyes out for whenever you're installing heads on a Z31, because there is a difference in the head bolt length. So anyway, moving on now, we got everything prepped. I'm gonna go ahead and lubricate these bolts up. I'm gonna lubricate the washer sides, and I'm gonna lubricate the threads so that when we install them, it will not bind up at all, and it should go in like butter. Another thing that I like to do too is I take brake cleaner and I also spray brake cleaner inside the head bolt holes, and I blow it out with compressed air as well. So I did that to all of the bolt holes, so now I know that I won't have any crud or anything in there causing a bind whenever I go to tighten down the head bolts. Basically, you want to be as thorough as you can be whenever you are installing heads, because it is a very critical part of the assembly of the engine. So little tip from me to you. So now I got everything prepped. Let's go ahead and install the heads. Alright guys, as you can tell, I've been having my hands full with prep work getting this engine put back together. Now, I'm not trying to make a show quality piece, but I do have nice new heads, nice clean intake manifold, and I want everything else to look nice. So I've just been taking my time, making sure that I clean things, paint things, and whatnot. And one of the biggest time-consuming things I've been running into is nasty old fasteners. Just to give you an example of what I've been dealing with, if you look at this fastener here, this is the quality of fasteners I've been dealing with. Now, granted, this is an 87 car. A lot of these fasteners are original, and I just don't want to put nasty, cruddy stuff on nice, clean parts. So I've been taking my time, doing a lot of prep work and whatnot, but now we're at a stopping point where I can't move forward without doing the fuel injection. So we're going to go ahead and modify the fuel rail. And here's the fuel rail right here. And as you can see, the fuel pressure regulator is on the front end of the fuel rail. Now, I have the adjustable fuel pressure regulator I talked about in the beginning of the episode. We can't have it in the front because of all the extra fittings, and the water neck in the front will be interfering with all that. So we're going to have to run the fuel pressure regulator on the back side of the system. So to get rid of this, what I went and did was I went to Home Depot and got a T-fitting, brass T-fittings and everything. So we'll put the T-fitting up front, and then I'll go ahead and run the fuel pressure regulator off the back side of it. And also give me a chance to clean up the hoses, got new hose and everything like that. But looking at the injectors right here, they're pretty close to the stock size, and the way that these injectors hold on is, you can tell there's no mounting points on this fuel rail at all. They have these clips right here with these little C-clips right here and this bracket right there, and you have rubber grommets. Now, this kit came complete for a Z31, and I'm very impressed with how much detail they put into making this a complete kit for, as far as a bolt-on for this goes. They gave me extra hoses, gave me extra rubber grommets, and the size of the injectors looked about the same size of the stock injectors. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. I got to figure out how to get these fittings off. It looks like I got like press fit fittings on the injectors. So I'm going to more than likely have to use my dike to cut those and get those all off. But I need to pay attention to the height of the injectors to make sure that these are the same height. So I'm going to do them one by one to make sure that they are at the same height. And we'll get these on right there. And basically these clips right here, these retainers, they bolt down to the lower intake manifold, and that's how it holds itself to the intake manifold. So I am running out of time for this weekend. It's just been very time consuming as far as getting everything done. I thought I'd be further along, but that's not the case. So I'm going to go ahead and start modifying this fuel rail, and I'll show you what it looks like in the end. Alright guys, so I successfully got the injectors installed, and if I was to tell you it was easy, I'd be lying. It was a pain in the ass, and it actually took me an hour and a half to get them all in there, but we got them in there. And basically what makes it so difficult is you have these retainers on the bottom. They actually kind of like squeeze the bottom of the hose onto the barb fitting. These are all barb fittings in there, and you have to get a little crafty. I used a flat blade screwdriver to bend it to where I was able to get my dikes in between, snap it open, and just kind of pry until I was able to break it loose. And then after that, I had to use my dikes to kind of chew in onto the side of the hoses and use WD-40 and just kind of pulling it with needle nose, and I was able to successfully get them off. But it was a task, a very difficult one. So be aware of that. If you're going to go ahead and do this to your stock fuel rail, it's going to be a little bit of a fight. But what I was talking about earlier is you have these retaining clips right here. You have a rubber O-ring basically that goes around this area here, and you have this C-clip right there that clips it on the bottom, and then the bolt will go through here, and that will hold the injector to the bottom of the manifold and hold the fuel rail to the manifold. Now we got the fuel pressure regulator here. I got this T-fitting that I put together, and I gotta put it on to the car and kind of do some test fitting and actually see whereabouts it's gonna sit with the water neck so that I can make the adequate adapter to make it all work. So I'm gonna go ahead and figure some more out, and I'll show you the end result. Alright Alright guys, so we ran into a little bit of a snag. I need to cut the rubber hoses down on the injectors just a little bit more to get the proper clearance for the upper intake manifold to the fuel rail. Now that's the whole reason we go ahead and mock things up, to see if we got it right, and I apparently didn't get it right. So not a big deal, just a little bit of an alteration, and we'll be able to make everything fit right. But I want to talk to you real quick about the fuel system and what I came up with. Basically, this is where the fuel pressure regulator sat. Now I'm just going to go ahead and have two hoses run straight into there. They're going to come underneath here where the single line once ran, and they're going to come back here to the T-fitting, which is going to go ahead and connect from the fuel filter to the T-fitting and then feed up to that. And then basically the return line is going to come back here, and it's going to come back to where the adjustable fuel pressure regulator is going to be mocked up somewhere in this area, and that will be able to allow us to control the fuel system and make it all work. So I'm out of time, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Now, I was hoping to be a lot further than I am now, but whenever you're prepping, cleaning, and doing all these things, it just consumes a lot of your time. But with that being said, I'll be out here next week, headed to Louisiana for my vacation. So it's going to be about a week and a half to 2 weeks before I upload another episode. But that's going to give me a lot of resting time to just chill, relax, get a game plan, come back, knock this out, and before you know it, it'll be all put back together, and we'll be on the road doing some testing and getting the fuel trims right with the Apexi unit. And you guys will be along for the ride, learning with me, because I've never messed with an Apexi before, and we'll see if it's good or if it's shit. And if it's shit, then I'm gonna have to get me a Mega Squirt and make it work that way. But crossing my fingers, hoping for the best. So hit the thumbs up if you like this episode. Go ahead and share this bad boy if you're watching it and you got friends that are into this type of stuff. I'm trying to grow the channel. Want to hit 1,000 subscribers. I know this channel is well worth it. But anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and share. See you guys on the next episode.